All right, looks like they've already started. I don't know what the score is. Match Ali Nomis Retep. Looks like it's 2-0 in Ali's favor so far as I can tell. Let's look at this kingdom. Looks like we're just now starting. So we've got draw. The only draw here is Herald. Herald is functionally a draw card if you can line it up with an action. Herald's a cantrip on its own where you play +1 card, +1 action, and then you reveal the top card of your deck, and if that card is an action, you get to play it. Now that effect is functionally like both +1 card and +1 action. It's +1 card because you're getting to play a card directly from your deck without having to first draw it into your hand, which is saving you a draw. And it's +1 action because you're getting to play the action without spinning an action. So Herald is kind of like a lost city, like a village plus a laboratory effect, if you can line it up. That's on its own kind of unreliable unless you build a deck that's got tons and tons of actions in it, but it can work well if there's a card in the kingdom that can sort of show you the top of your deck so you can know when to play it and line it up with an action. Fortunately, we have that here. We have Cartographer, which is normally not an amazing card. All it does is show you the top of your deck and you can discard stuff, that's an okay effect. But Cartographer actually works pretty well here with Herald, because you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and then you can line them up so your Herald always hits an action. And so what you'll want is you want the card that's 2 from the top of your deck to be an action when you play the Herald, because Herald will first draw 1 card, and then it will check the top card of your deck. So if the card 2 from the top is an action, you can play with Herald, and then you'll draw. So we've got draw with that little Cartographer Herald combo. That also nets as action, because as we said, Herald is plus action. Do we have gains? Yes. Artisan can gain cards costing up to 5, and then Horn of Plenty can gain stuff costing up to conceivably any amount. The constraint is you can gain a card costing up to the amount of unique cards you have in play. Horn of Plenty is a potentially very good payload, because if you get 8 cards in play, 8 unique cards, like say you play Copper, Silver, Gold, Horn of Plenty, Cartographer, Bazaar, Herald, Throne Room. Conceivable scenario. You have 8 cards in play, that Horn of Plenty can now gain a province. And so very frequently, the best strategy in Horn of Plenty games is just to build a deck that can play like 5 or 6 Horns of Plenty in one turn with 8 unique cards, and you just gain a majority of the province pile all at once. That strategy can be really good because you don't have to green at all until the very final turn. You can just keep building, keep adding Horns of Plenty, which gain you more cards, and then the last turn you go off and gain all the stuff at once. Now, the one big limitation on that, though, is there's no trashing in this kingdom at all. And so you do have to draw through 10 copper/estates to be able to do that. I think it might still be worth it, because you have the next best thing here, which is Warehouse. Warehouse can draw 3 cards non-terminally, but you have to discard 3 cards again. If you're trying to draw your whole deck, Warehouse is sort of actively counterproductive, because net -1 card. It gives you 3 cards, but it itself costs a card, and it discards 3 cards for you. So if you imagine a hand with Warehouse and 4 other cards, you play the Warehouse, you're now down to 4 cards, you draw 3 cards, you're up to 7, you discard again, you're back down to 4. So if your goal is to draw your whole deck, Warehouse is net harming you. But let's say I just don't care about those coppers and estates, but I have them around because I can't get rid of them. What you could do with Warehouse is you just discard all the coppers and estates down to the discard pile, and then just never plan to draw back through your deck to those discarded cards, and you just leave the coppers and estates and discard each turn. Then Warehouse can be sort of netting you draw as long as you don't plan on ever getting to those coppers and estates. And so I think there's a conceivable engine to be built here, which is Cartographers, Heralds, Throne Rooms for draw. You could use Throne Room to multiply the Herald's effects. Warehouse to sift through the estates and coppers. And at the end of that, you play some Horns of Plenty, some Artisans to gain some Horns of Plenty maybe, and then you build up to 5 or 6 Horns of Plenty, you gain a bunch of provinces. That's what I would try to do here. That is a bit rickety though, and has great potential to go wrong. You could very easily trigger bad shuffles that way, and so there's some risks there. What could you do instead? You could just play kind of like very big money-ish, buy some like maybe Silver, Gold, Noble Brigands is probably the best big money card here. That sounds kind of gross to me. Noble Brigand works well if you're both playing big money, because it can trash your opponent's silvers and golds and gain them for you. But if your opponent is not going for money, they're just doing the thing I was describing, they're going to have probably no silvers and golds in their deck. Noble Brigand is going to be kind of copper. Might occasionally give them a copper, which is not an insignificant attack. But it wouldn't be amazing here. Let's see what they do. So Nomis open with Cartographer Duchess. That's interesting. I think that's a pretty fine opening, actually. If you're doing the thing I was suggesting, you know, Duchess is normally a really weak card because it's like a silver, but it's terminal. But, you know, if you're trying to build towards the Horn of Plenty deck, you're going to have tons of unnecessary action from all the Heralds and Throne Rooms you're playing, and no real terminal actions to play with it besides Artisan. So, you know, the fact that Duchess costs an action and Silver doesn't really count against it. And Duchess is an action card, so Herald can hit it, whereas Herald cannot hit Silver. So I think Cartographer Duchess could be a fine opening. Ali goes Silver, Silver, which seems like the sort of opening you'd go if you're playing towards big money, which not necessarily a bad move here. You know, the engine here I think is hard to build. Might not be something I went for if I were, you know, not confident in my ability to get it together. Silver, Silver seems fine in that case. Then what do we got? Okay, Nomis Retep gains a Noble Brigand. That signals to me that they are not trying to build an engine. They're probably just playing big money, because Noble Brigand is a very money-ish card. It's not drawing you anything, it's gaining you treasures. So maybe they are just playing money. They gain a Bazaar. Bazaar is probably fine here. I mean, if you're playing money, you don't really need the actions, but the +1 coin on a cantrip is functioning like a $5 peddler, which, I don't know, given the utter paucity of other strong cards in this kingdom for money, I guess it's probably still better than a silver. Ali just goes straight for gold. So yeah, Ali's playing very, very straight up money. Nomis gets gold as well. Oh, it looks like they have spec chat on. That's unfortunate. Yeah, so this is unfortunate. Ali did ask us for commentary, but if they have spectator chat on, that means anything that other people type in the chat, the players will be able to see it. So then you can't say anything particularly informative, or it helps the players. You can tell because the text in the chat will say message if spec chat is on, but it'll just say message spectators if spec chat is off, because your messages will only go to the other spectators. So yeah, they're mostly just getting lots of money cards. And I believe there was a discussion about Bank a second ago. NB Schluter says Bank seems bad. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think Bank is better than gold in situations where you're drawing a ton of your cards and you have plus buy and you're looking to hit huge price numbers, right? You draw like a bunch of coppers, you play a Bank, and you're hitting like 13, 14, whatever. And you have plus buy to spend it all, because Bank can get up to way more than 3 coins per turn. Obviously that's not happening here. There is literally no plus buy in the kingdom, so there's absolutely no benefit whatsoever to hitting any number higher than 8, right? You hit 8, you can buy everything you conceivably want to buy, which is province and everything less than it. 9, 10, etc., you're still buying 1 card per turn. So there's no value hitting higher than 8. So the question then is, does Bank help you hit 8 better than gold does? Sometimes, but rarely. You know, chances are if you've got a bunch of treasures in your hand, which powers up Bank, you've probably already got 8 in hand anyway. Bank can work with a hand of like 4 coppers and Bank. That would hit 8, whereas 4 coppers and gold would only hit 7. Or I think 2 coppers, silver, Bank would hit. Does that work? Yeah, that would hit 8 as well, whereas 2 coppers, silver, gold would only hit 7. So there's a few cases where Bank can help you hit 8, but gold would fail. But then you've got other scenarios, like what if you just draw like, you know, Bank and copper, or like just Bank, etc. in the interim while getting there? Well then, you know, Bank and copper is worth 2, or 3. Bank and gold's worth 4, or just Bank is worth 1, just gold's worth 3. And so if you're getting Bank early, you might be hitting lower price points early on that are preventing you from buying silvers and golds in key spots. And then Bank maybe makes you slightly more likely to hit 8 in the end of it. So, you know, Bank I think is questionably better and likely worse than gold here. It shines when you can spend a bunch, but with no plus buy, there's no value hitting like 10, 12, etc., which is where Bank is best. Yeah. I don't like Throne Room. It looks like, I mean, like, in the deck I was envisioning that plays lots of Heralds and Cartographers and stuff, gains lots of cards with Artisan and Horn of Plenty, Throne Room makes a lot of sense. You're going to have a ton of actions, you want to play a bunch of them a bunch of times. Throne Room's great in that deck. If you're playing a big money deck, you don't really want Throne Room very much, because it only works if you line it up with actions, which, as we can see in this case, didn't happen. And you don't want to have too many actions in your big money deck. And so this Throne Room is just like a very risky, like that could have just been a Noble Brigand or a Silver or something like that was guaranteed to have some value to you. The benefit of Throne Room when it works in a deck where your deck is like mostly treasures, I think does not outweigh the risks of drawing it dead like they did. Alright, I think we're caught up now. Let's see. Ali is up 1 province, despite being player 2. So it looks like they're a little bit in the lead. Nomis has, again, they've drawn both their Throne Rooms with only 1 action. Ali's getting Horns of Plenty. That's interesting. I don't like gaining the Horns of Plenty if you're not building a deck that's trying to play a bunch of Horns of Plenty all at once. Because Horn of Plenty is going to be kind of like a workshop for you. If you only have like a 5-card hand, or not trying to draw more than that, which they're clearly not, because the only way to draw more than 5 cards here is Herald, and none of them have it, then your Horn of Plenty is going to have maybe 2, 3, 4 at best unique cards, right? You get like Horn of Plenty, Copper Gold Cartographer in play. You gain like a bunch of Silvers and Throne Rooms and stuff. And so that doesn't help you a whole lot, but it is a card that gets in your way when you want to eventually hit 8, right? Horn of Plenty is worth 0 on its own. So you gain a bunch of Silvers with it, but then at some point you don't want a Silver gainer around anymore. It's a 0-cost treasure in your deck, which is just taking up space. And so I don't think I would add a Horn of Plenty to a big money deck. I would add a Horn of Plenty to a deck that's trying to play a bunch of Horns of Plenty with 8 unique cards and buy province. If the Horn of Plenty can't do that for you, it's probably getting in your way more than it's helping. Alrighty, so Ali is still in the lead. If they can hit 8 here, they obviously win. And it looks they can't. If they draw that bank, they'll have 6. But that's still fine. I would definitely be setting up my turn to draw the bank, because if I'm Ali, I just want to score some amount of points, buy like an estate or a duchy, etc. Because that puts me out, very much out of the way of Nomis. Right? If they buy 1 province, they're still behind, and so it's going to take like at least 2 turns to come around. You don't absolutely have to score, because Nomis was player 1. If Ali scores nothing and Nomis buys province, the score will be 27-27. But if the game ends in a tie at the end of player 1's turn, player 2 wins. I think on the grounds that like you got to the same point, but one of you took 1 more turn to get there. Player 2 did the better playing. It's only a true tie if the game is tied at the end of player 2's turn. Then it's like an actual tie. So Ali could think, like, oh, well, Nomis, even if they buy province, will tie it up, and that will result in a loss for them. So they don't necessarily absolutely have to green here. But if you take a duchy, you've moved that timer up from sort of 1 turn to now 2 turns. Nomis has to take a duchy, then take a province, or they can't take a province. Take a duchy, then take another duchy, then take a province, and then there's way behind in points. And so, yeah, Ali is definitely in the better spot here. The Horns of Plenty, I think, are no longer doing much for you. I think you could consider just converting them into estates even. All right. Ali's still not quite hitting 8, but they've got enough of a points lead at this point that I don't think it's going to be possible for Nomis to come back. I'm going to message him and let him know to change spec chat to off before the next game. Alrighty. Oh, wait. Is there a win here?
Yeah, it looks like they've got a win. So they got to top deck the duchy, then you just gain the silver, top deck the copper, and you buy the last province. That's enough points. Yeah, that'd be a win. Oh no! Oh no! No, don't gain a second duchy. Oh, they had the win in hand. They actually had the ideal hand. They had a hand that could gain a province and a duchy, which is like the one thing that could not only tie it up, take them to the win, and they passed that up. Definitely that's a sort of situation where, at the minimum, I would probably think about it a little bit more. They blazed through that and they missed out on a win. They just gain one duchy, and then gain a silver, and they can buy the last province, and that'd be 9 points. That would have been enough to win.
Alrighty, Ali wins. Alright, starting in on this next game. Let's analyze this kingdom. Okay, so draw. The only draw here is city, and that's going to be awkward because city does not actually draw any cards until one full supply pile is emptied. There's plenty of plus action. City will always be plus action. It's like a village at the start and only becomes a draw card after a pile is emptied, while village is plus action. Trashing. There is upgrade can trash, loan can trash coppers, and plus buy. There's no plus buy, or no, there's plus buy. There's plus buy on contraband. Contraband is not very good plus buy though, because your opponent can just name the card you want and force you not to buy it. You can't have regain cards. Bandit can gain you golds, and Horn of Plenty can gain you, as we saw last game, basically any card you want if you play it well. So what do you do here? I mean, if I were being optimistic and trying to build a big engine, you can eventually get tons of draw with like cities once they're activated, and you just like draw with cities, play Horns of Plenty, empty all the provinces. The restriction is, what if your opponent ignores that? Then, how do you get those cities activated? If you have to empty like 10 of a card, what 10 cards are you emptying? Are you trying to get 10 cities before your deck goes off? In which case, your deck's going to be really weak for a long time because you're spending all your key buys getting glorified $5 villages, which you don't even need the village effect because there's not really a whole lot of terminal action cards you want to play here. And so those will be mostly just like wasted buys. So I very much think a viable strategy here could be just get like a bandit, play money. You probably get an upgrade or two in that deck still to get rid of the estates, turn those into silvers, but just do like upgrade bandit, big money with some golds, and go straight for the provinces. Because if you contest the cities, all of a sudden cities will empty very fast, and then you'll both have very good draw. But if you just leave your opponent to do that all on their own, I think you could easily get a majority of the provinces before they get like 10 cities down, get some Horns of Plenty on, in their deck, and get their engine online. So that's a big constraint here. If there were any draw at all that didn't require first emptying 10 useless cards to activate, I think Horn of Plenty is more than enough of a payload to build a nice engine around that would crush the bandit thing. But the fact that the only draw is city, and that it only draws after you empty 10 piles, or 10 cards in a pile, and the fact that there's no piles here that are naturally going to empty, just makes me think that that'll just take too long to do. And so I think I would just do bandit money. Now the other thing to be said in the engine's favor is Outpost. It does let you play functionally 2 turns, right? Now for a big money deck, that's not super helpful. Because the turn you're playing Outpost, you're functionally playing with a 4-card hand, because Outpost is taking up a spot. And then the turn after you've played Outpost, where you get your extra turn, you only got 3 cards to work with. So Outpost and big money is just like pretty mediocre. But you got an engine that can draw its whole deck. 2 turns is like huge amounts of value. And so Outpost would really accelerate the engine thing if it ever happened. I really think the city is just like a little bit too slow to get going. How do they open? So Ali opens double loan. I don't like that very much. I think opening loan it's all right. It's a copper trasher. But not nothing. 2 loans are kind of gonna get in each other's way a bit, because if one loan reveals the other loan, you're sad because you don't want to trash that loan. And you're only adding 2 more functional coppers to your deck, which is not really helping you hit 5 very much. Right? I think the cards I want here early on are Upgrade and Bandit, probably in that order. I really want to get those estates trashed. And if you're trashing your coppers before your estates, you're going to have this awkward problem where your deck's going to be mostly a large portion of green cards, right? You get a bunch of coppers trashed. You have a deck that's like 3 coppers, 2 loans, 3 estates. you're real unlikely to hit 5 with that deck. And so 2 loans can make it kind of difficult to hit 5, to hit the key cards you want to jumpstart your deck. Nomis opens Silver Walled Village. I don't like this either. Walled Village, it's a village. The main value of Walled Village is it lets you play 2 terminal action cards in a turn instead of 1. Like if I wanted to play 2 bandits, or a bandit and a navigator, or an outpost and a navigator, right? I would need a village to do that. Well, at this point in the game, Nomis has 0 terminal action cards in their deck. So the Walled Village is contributing exactly 0 to their deck. And so it's sort of functionally a wasted buy. Even if you want it long-term, even if your long-term goal is to have a bunch of terminal action cards, which in this kingdom I don't see why you would. They're not particularly good, nor do you want many of them. You want to get the cards that help you early to get your deck running early so that you get there quicker. If you add the cards that aren't helpful now, your deck never really gets any better, and then it takes you long to get there. So I would almost never, ever open with a village. Yeah, Walled Village I think is a very bad opening there. I think the main contenders are probably Silver alone maybe. It's less likely to hit 5, but it does get your coppers trashed. Or maybe even like Navigator Silver or Navigator Alone. Navigator is normally like a terrible card because it's like a silver that costs an action to play it. But I could even see an argument for Navigator in this kingdom just because there's not a whole lot of other terminal action cards I want to play with. Basically just Bandit. And you can upgrade Navigator later into like a 5 cost if you want to. So let's see how it goes from there. Ali gets a silver. That seems fine. Nomis buys a contraband. I don't like the contraband very much. Again, it's got plus bio on it, and it's like a gold. But the fact that your opponent can deny you the key card just makes it really, really awkward to use. Late game's going to roll around, and at some point it's going to be really obvious that you want to buy province. And so you play your contraband, and your opponent names province. All of a sudden, you can't play province, or you can't buy province. And if you don't play your contraband, so that your opponent can't do that, well, now the contraband is just a junk card in your deck. And so I think contraband is often very weak. I would think the first 5 should be upgrade or bandit. I would start with upgrade. I would like to turn those estates into silvers especially. I think bandit could be defensible, but upgrade for me. On mute for 1 moment. Yes, this is a very key lesson to understand early is, right, these cards, the main function of a village is it's giving you +1 action. It might say +1 card +2 actions. You should read that as +1 action. Every card sort of implicitly has like a -1 card to it because you have to spin to drawing the card in the first place. And every action card sort of has that implicit -1 action to it because you have to spin an action playing the card. So if you factor out that fact, what Walled Village is really netting you is +1 action. It's giving you the ability to play 1 more action card per turn. It's not a draw card. If you have a hand with 5 cards in it and one of them is Walled Village, you play Walled Village, your hand's now down to 4 cards because Walled Village left, you draw a new card, you're back to 5 where you started. So if Nomis is getting Walled Village maybe because they think it's a draw card, it's not. All it's doing is giving you plus action to play more action cards per turn, but they have no other action cards to play, right? They have tons of Walled Villages, which are helping them play tons of more Walled Villages, which is just a dead end that leads nowhere. And so they spent turns 2, 3, and 4 adding cards that basically add 0 value to their deck. And the Walled Villages are good eventually if you have a lot of terminal action cards. There's definitely kingdoms where you really, really, really want villages because there's lots of key terminal action cards you want to play. This is just not one of them. And even if those kingdoms do exist, you never open with the village before you've got those cards because it's just not doing anything for you. Turn 5, Nomis is just doubling down, quadrupling down now on the Walled Villages. I'm really, really, I can't emphasize enough how much I think that's a mistake. I would not buy Walled Village in this scenario. They're sort of basically forfeiting all their buys. They're buying cards that are doing nothing for them. It's kind of like passing the last 4 turns. Ali gets an upgrade. I like that. I think that's probably the best buy in that scenario. Nomis gets an... sorry, I was about to have a heart attack. I thought that said buys a Walled Village, but that was just... It says Nomis top decks the Walled Village. They bought a silver. That's a fine buy on 4. Ali gets another upgrade. I think 2 upgrades is totally fine. You could live with 1 if you're playing big money, because you don't need to get super trash to play money well. But often, especially if you're trying to build a good engine, 2 upgrades, even 3 or 4 upgrades can be fine. Nomis buys 2 loans. I don't hate 2 loans. Naming Upgrade I think was smart. It's probably the best card for Nomis's deck. But if I'm Nomis, it's kind of late to get trashed. I may even just like I'd buy a Bandit. Bandit's the next best action card for you. Ali's buying City now on turn 8. I don't like that. You know, if you're playing the City deck, you really gotta be. Oh wait, did I misread this? Oh, I was giving Nomis a little bit too much of a hard time. Not all of these were Walled Village buys. I was reading the top decks Walled Villages buy to Walled Village. Oh, I'm so sorry, Nomis. You only bought 2 Walled Villages. I mean, that's too many, but it's not nearly as bad as I was suggesting when I thought it was 4. Buying Contraband, I talked about why I don't like it very much, but that's definitely still better than Walled Village. I thought they bought 4 Walled Villages. They've only bought 2. My rant is only half true. Okay, so Nomis gets an Outpost. I don't love Outpost. I talked about why a second ago. I don't think it's great in the big money deck. They got another Contraband. I still don't like that much. Those are going to be very, very much dead cards by the time Province time rolls around. I think Upgrade and Bandit are the key cards. They do eventually both get Bandits. That's good. I think a little bit late, but better late than never. Okay, so then they buy gold. That's probably fine. Certainly you don't buy gold first. I would not buy a gold until I'd already got a Bandit, because the best way to gain gold in this kingdom is just to buy the Bandit, and it gives you as much gold as you want. But if you've already got one of those, and you're already kind of late in the game, I think buying gold at that point could be justified. So now I'm caught up. Ali's deck still seems like it's probably a bit better. They got 3 upgrades, so the deck's going to be much thinner. They don't have the Walled Villages, which are doing nothing for them. And they don't have the Contrabands, which I think are going to be really awkward in the late game. So I definitely prefer Ali's position here on those grounds. They also have 1 more province already. I don't think the city's going to matter. I think the city was probably a wasted buy. That could have been a Bandit. Get that Bandit sooner. All right, they hit 7. Maybe it's a gold here. Outpost. Outpost is, again, it's a phenomenal card if you're playing an engine. I don't think it's super great for money. It kind of gets in your way of hitting 8. It's not horrible. Like, I'd rather gold. It's not doing nothing for you, but wow. Nomis hits 8 on their 3-card turn. That's really unlikely. That being said, they have a Contraband, so they can't buy province even if they can afford it. Now, Nomis does make a little mistake here. You can play your treasures in any order. So what they could have done, and what you should pretty much always do if you have Contraband, is you play your Contraband first and then play your other treasures. Because it gives your opponent less information about how much you can afford. Right? So like, if I'm Ali, and I see my opponent's got a 3-card hand, and they play a Contraband, what I'm thinking is probably something along the lines of, there's no way they've got $8 in a 3-card hand. Their deck's only got a few golds in it. You know, little do I know they've actually got 2 of those golds already in hand. And so I might say, you can't buy gold, or you can't buy duchy, thinking that you can't actually afford province, and then bam, you buy the province because I named something else. Whereas if you lead with your golds and then play the Contraband, I'm like, oh, they've got $9. I know exactly what they can buy. I'll name province. Converse is also true, right? Let's say I've only got $5 in my hand. I might lead with my Contraband first, making you overly cautious. You might think, maybe they can afford province. I should name province to be safe. And then I buy the duchy or the Bandit or whatever with my $5. Whereas if I play all my treasures first and then play the Contraband as my last card, and my opponent sees, oh, they've only got $5, well, they can safely know, no point naming gold, no point naming province. They can't afford those. I'll just go ahead and name like duchy or upgrade or whatever. So definitely it's better to play the upgrade, play the Contraband before your other treasures. It gives more uncertainty to your opponent. At some point, the Bandit could trash those Contrabands, and that would actively be pretty friendly, I think. Because the Contraband is going to make it really hard to green effectively as Nomis. Naming Outpost is weird. You definitely don't want multiple outposts in your deck. I mean, if I were Nomis, I wouldn't even take a free outpost if I've already got one. I think naming like province and gold makes sense in Ali's situation. As it turns out, Nomis couldn't afford 8 anyway, but there's no way Ali knew that. So Mort's pointing out that Ali trashed a silver with loan turn 4. Oh, turn 14. I misread that. Yeah, sure enough. I mean, there's situations where you don't want silver. It's definitely context where that makes sense. But I do agree that the contradiction between buying silver one turn and trashing the next turn is a little bit stark. And also, this is a kingdom where you do want silver, right? You're playing simple, big money. You're not trying to build an engine. The silver is a good card for your deck in this kingdom. I definitely would not trash that silver. I'd be happy to have it around. They upgrade silver into Walled Village. I don't like that very much. I think that's a bit of a downgrade. I think probably better in that scenario. This is about far enough of the game that I'm of two minds about this. But definitely late in the game, upgrading Bandit into gold is an improvement. When you're only about to shuffle your deck like one more time before the game ends, I'd rather just go ahead and get that Bandit out of my deck because it does nothing for me the turn I find it. It only helps me, I play it, then I shuffle through my deck to find the gold, and then that next shuffle it helps me. So if I'm thinking there's only like one shuffle coming up, I'd rather get the Bandit out of my deck and just convert it to a gold. And so my thought is probably upgrade Bandit to gold there. We're still not quite close to the end of the game enough that I'm 100% on that. 7 provinces is still like a little bit of an awkward number, but it's definitely close enough to the end of the game that I would consider I'd rather just have the gold in the deck and not have the Bandit. Especially if the alternative is getting rid of a silver. Alright, Ali should buy province here. That seems clear enough. Cities are still nowhere close to activating. No surprise there. I don't think that city's ever really going to help Ali. If I'm Nomis, I would just trash that contraband, honestly. Buying gold, that seems about fine. We're close enough to the end that gold could be a duchy, though. Honestly, duchy might be better buy. Likewise, I don't even know about playing that walled village. If I'm Ali, I'm thinking about upgrading walled villages into duchies. In fact, you could do it again here. Yeah, get a duchy. Horn of Plenty, no. Again, there's no draw. The Horn of Plenty is never going to be lined up with like 5 or 6 unique cards. So it's at best gaining you like silvers. And we're too late in the game for you to be wanting to like flood your deck with silvers. So I definitely would not want a Horn of Plenty here. I just convert it straight to a duchy. There's only 4 provinces left. Those points are going to matter a lot more than whatever the Horn of Plenty can get you. Out. Why do they want outposts? I think that would have just been 2 duchies right there. Or did they didn't have enough for 2 duchies. Duchy Silk Road, Duchy Silver. Yeah, all those contrabands I think are going to start to hurt Nomis a lot here. Alright, so there's 2 provinces left, but there's no need to do any duchy dancing because Ali already has a points lead. So if Ali provinces now, they have 30 points. And so they know that even if Nomis can afford the last province, it doesn't matter because they'll only be at 27 and they'll still lose. So Ali could safely province here if they hit 8. Yeah, trashing Wall Village into Duchy seems fine. I would play that Horn of Plenty and gain another Duchy. Yes, Pregnant Bird, this is a game of League. This is H Division, one of the H Divisions. There's like 64 H Divisions. I can't tell you which one it is. But these 2 players are playing one of their League matches. What are you buying for? Silver? Estate? I mean, gaining gold's not terrible, but with 2 provinces left, I'm just looking for points lead. I would just take a duchy there, especially because getting that Horn of Plenty out of your deck is also a benefit. Horn of Plenty cannot help you hit province here, so I'd rather just not have it. If you gain a victory card with Horn of Plenty, it trashes itself. And while that's normally a drawback, in this case I'd consider it a virtue. Nomis has started to learn that you should play the contraband first. That's good. That's definitely an improvement. I'll be back in a second. Alrighty, I am back. That looks like a very clear choice for Ali. Duchy Province seems definitely the right move. I'd say Ali's got this on lock. Alright, yeah, so key things that decided this game. Nomis opened with walled villages. We talked about why I think that's a mistake. They got one on turn 2 and another one turn 5 when they had no action cards. So it's kind of 2 wasted turns. They got a bunch of contrabands, which are really hurting them here because the contrabands can't help you hit province. Ali, I think, was mostly on the right track. They got some upgrades, then they got Bandit. I think that's kind of the key $5 cards you want. They did get a city, which is kind of a mistake. City doesn't actively hurt you, but it's sort of a wasted buy because it's doing nothing for you in this kingdom. I don't think the outposts were worth it, but both of them kind of did that. And Nomis took 2 outposts. I like the choice to turn the Bandit into a gold there. Bandit is no longer doing much for you. Buying golds is fine. Again, I would have bought Duchy, but there's not like there's a whole lot of ways back in this game for Nomis. Kind of too late in the game, I think, for it to matter. I guess if you're Nomis, maybe you tread towards Silk Roads now. You've got a bunch of plus buy from contraband. Your opponent's... Now, Ali should be naming Silk Road here, or naming Duchy. Good. Ali did that. Because, you know, your opponent can't buy province, because if they buy province, they lose on the face of it, because the game will be over. So naming Silk Road and Duchy, I think, are much better choices there. I think probably Silk Road's just the best thing. I think that was the right thing to name. You just name Silk Road consistently, and they can't really outscore you. Ali can just turn that Navigator into another Duchy, buy the last Duchy, and then, yeah, I'm not really seeing how Nomis comes back. Silk Road's definitely, A, it's not strong enough, I think, to outscore all that, but B, if you got contrabands, your opponent just now safely names Silk Road, and what are you buying now? Estates. So now we just play it out until Ali eventually hits 8. Oh, their city's finally activated. That city's a laboratory now. Draw 2 cards. All right. I guess you could upgrade the walled village into a city. The city is now better than walled villages. Good choice. All right, game over. Ali's got 8 in hand. Nomis has like an absurdly large number in hand, but nothing to do with it. What's that? 13. Yeah, with that plus buy, that doesn't help you a whole lot. Alrighty, that's the game. I think it's 4-0 Ali now. Alright, Nomis, comeback time. Yeah, 5 contrabands. This is just 5 more contrabands than I would want. Alright, what do we have here? So we've got action in the form of village. We've got trashing with remake or butcher, or trading post, or lookout, or loan, or forge. Oh my god, there's like there's a lot of ways to trash here. Got plus buy with horse traders. You can also gain cards with butcher, or remake stuff and other stuff. The draw, however, is going to be pretty weak. There is one way you can draw here, which is you can use King's Court on a cantrip, like Village or Merchant. You got a cantrip like Merchant, which is +1 card, +1 action, and you King's Court it to play it 3 times, you're actually netting 1 draw out of that interaction, because imagine a hand with 5 cards, like 3 treasures, and then a King's Court and a Merchant. You play the King's Court and you play the Merchant, you're now down to 3 cards in hand, but you get the +1 card effect 3 times. So King's Court plus Merchant can net you like 1 draw. Now the question is that worth building here? My answer is I think probably. I see, to answer Ali's question, not that it matters because they can't see this, I don't think it matters if the league matches are rated or not. It's just up to y'all. Anyways, the 2 strategies here are, you could try to build the King's Court thing. You can definitely get very thin very fast. I think Remake's an excellent trasher to open with. Trash 2 cards at a time, you could get thin very quickly. And you can ultimately build up to like King's Court merchants, play Butcher and or Horse Traders as like your payload. That seems very doable. The other option could just be getting thin and then playing Butcher Big Money. Butcher Big Money is a very strong Big Money deck. Butcher, it's like Remodel in that you trash a card and you can turn a card into a card costing like 2 more. So like you get 2 coffers, then you turn an estate into like a remake. You spent 2 coffers doing it. Done the same thing as Remodel. But it's better than Remodel because it offers a lot more flexibility. For one, you can bank up those coffers turn to turn. So like if I just turn my estate into a 3-cost card like Silver, I only spent 1 of those coffers, and so I can roll that coffer over for future turns. I could use that coffer just as a treasure. You know, I could just spend it to hit a bigger number when I'm buying things. Or I could save that coffer, and then on future Butcher plays, I can now Butcher something into even higher cost cards. So let's say I Butcher my 3 estates into 3 silvers. I've banked up 3 coffers. Now I can remake, or not remake, Butcher my my coppers straight into silvers, right? I have 3 coffers and I spend 3 coffers instead of 2, turning a copper into a silver, something like that. So Butcher offers that flexibility. The other thing that Butcher offers is you don't have to trash anything. It just says you may trash. So you could just play Butcher to take the 2 coffers and then not trash anything. And that's sometimes a viable option. So part of why Butcher is so good at big money is just because that flexibility makes it very easy to consistently hit 8. Coffers can be very good at turning like $7 and $9 hands into 8 and 8. But the other thing is Butcher is very, very good at milling provinces. You have a province and a Butcher in hand, you trash the province, you gain a new province. Now you can do that with Remodel, right? You can do that with Replace, whatever. The benefit of Butcher is if you do that, you're getting 2 coffers out of that. So it's like it's a silver that's also helping you trash province into province. And if you're playing big money, that's always a big threat. You know, the way big money beats the engine is it ends the game faster before the engine comes online. And so if I'm playing the Butcher deck, I want to get some provinces, and then I just want to turn provinces into more provinces, even if it's not scoring me points, just because it's lowering the province pile faster and into the game quickly. And so I think the big money deck here is like remake into Butcher, into get some provinces early, empty the pile fast. And the other option is trying to play around King's Court, just because King's Court is so inherently strong. Even when there's no draw, even the engine's otherwise weak, you could build a big enough deck to take advantage of King's Court here. Let's see what they've done. So 5-2 for Ali. I think opening Trading Post is totally fine. I think opening just Remake is also defensible. I think opening just Butcher is also defensible. But 5-2 seems Trading Post seems all right. I think I would take Remake over Trading Post, honestly. Like if I see 2 estates, I get 2 silvers out of that instead of 1. If I see estate and copper, I'm still getting 1 silver, so it's like equivalent to Trading Post in the worst case. Trading Post will be better eventually at turning coppers into silver. But yeah, Trading Post is fine. Nomis opens Horse Trader Silver. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Whether you're playing the big money deck or the engine deck, I think you still want to get trashed here. Horse Traders isn't really helping with that. Now, if you subtracted out Remake, Horse Traders would be a totally fine opening. Horse Traders is pretty darn good at helping you hit 5. You draw Horse Traders with 2 coppers and 2 estates. You discard the 2 estates, you've hit 5. And so Horse Traders is really reliable, more so than Silver, at hitting 5 consistently. It only fails to hit 5 if you see Horse Traders with all 3 of your estates. So if I'm trying to get to like Butcher or Trading Post ASAP to trash, Horse Traders would be alright, it would get me there. But there's Remake around, which is at least about on par with Butcher and Trading Post, if not better, at trashing in the early game. And so I'd much rather go straight into Remake, get like Remake Silver, or Remake Lookout even, so I can get the trashing started faster. Because if you do the Horse Traders thing, best case scenario is you're drawing your Trading Post or Butcher for the first time like turn 5. That's just much slower than getting your Remake turn 3 or 4, already trashing 2 cards before your opponent's even gotten started. Let's see where it goes from there. Merchant is alright. Ali gets Lookout. I like that a little bit better. They're already getting started trashing. Nomis gets a Village. I think this is the same mistake we saw from Nomis last game. They've only got 1 terminal action card in their hand, or in their deck, which is Horse Traders. You don't need to be adding Villages yet. Villages are only helpful for resolving collision between terminal action cards, and you don't have those. So that Village could have been a Silver, could have been a Lookout, could have been a Merchant. Most of those would have been better. So now we got Ali gets a silver. That seems all right. Nomis gets a loan. Why are they getting a loan? They hit 5. Why are they buying a loan for $5 on turn 5? Again, the value of horse traders is it helps you hit 5, so you can get like a butcher or a trading post. I don't understand why they bought a loan there. That seems inexplicable to me. If you wanted the loan that badly, you could have bought it on previous turns. Ali gets butcher turn 5. I like that. Definitely the trading post deck, even if you open with trading post to start out, should be pivoting towards butcher for the end game. We talked about why butcher is really good in pile control towards the end. So Mort says Nomis' turn 3 merchant was also with a $5 hand. Oh my goodness, you're right. Yeah, I'm very confused by Nomis' choice of buys. Certainly butcher and trading post are both much better than merchant for your deck. Nomis gets a gold, and this kingdom gold seems fine. Although for Nomis' deck, I would be taking a butcher before I got a gold. Butcher is the key card here. I would not pass up on butcher to get gold unless I already had at least one butcher, maybe 2. Ali gets a village. That's all right. Neither of them's trying to build up, I don't think, towards the big King's Court thing. Certainly those decks would look different. And if you're not building towards the big King's Court engine, I don't think the villages are doing too much for you. I think I'd rather just get like a butcher or 2. Probably 2 butchers is a good number. And then those earlier trashes like Lookout and Trading Post just eventually get butchered into silvers and golds and stuff. I don't understand why Ali butchered a forge into a forge either. Now, not that it mattered too much here, but I do see a similar mistake, which is people kind of treat the butcher like a remodel or something and think that the trashing is non-optional, and they'll like butcher a copper into a copper just to get the 2 coppers. I mean, that works. But a better option is just to play the butcher and not trash anything, and you get the coffers without having to get anything out of your hand. So just bear in mind when you play butcher, you can always just decline to trash, and there's no point in trashing a card into the same card if you didn't want to trash it. Now I don't understand why Forge is valuable in the first place here. I think Forge is just a much weaker trasher than the other cards around. Forge is you can trash any number of cards, and you get a card costing equal to the amount you trashed. So Forge is good if you can draw a huge hand of like tons of coppers and curses and stuff, like a deck that's got tons of draw in it. You draw a bunch and you play 1 Forge and you clean out a ton of junk all at once. But that's kind of hard to do, and it's something that can only happen late in the game. A, because drawing a bunch takes a bunch of draw cards, and B, because Forge costs 7. So I wouldn't ever expect Forge to see play here, just because you can get started immediately with Remake, Butcher, or Trading Post and get trashed well before Forge has any potential to be valuable. Plus, if you're forging one card to another, you're getting a card of equal cost. If you're butchering one card into another, you're getting a card costing up to 2 more, or even more if you banked up coffers. So I would just turn the Forge into a province at this point. Let's see what Ali chooses to do. They're butchering the silver into a gold. And then, I don't like that too much. I mean, you could turn the Forge into a province, then just buy another gold, and then still have a silver around. If you're playing a money-ish deck, having silvers in it is fine. Now, Noma's got a King's Court, but it doesn't feel like they've built a deck that's aiming to play the King's Court thing. King's Court works when you have a ton of other actions around. We saw, I think it was turn 12? Yeah, turn 12, Nomis had a King's Court and then 4 treasures in hand. The King's Court is doing nothing for you. If you're trying to build the King's Court deck, what it should look like is getting thin much faster. You should definitely be open with Remake, anyway. But if you're trying to play the King's Court deck, you want to get those coppers and estates out of the way ASAP. So that turn 2 buy would have needed to be like a Remake instead of Horse Traders. And then you want to add a bunch of these cantrip cards, the merchants and villages and so forth into your deck. Probably mostly merchants. And then the plan is like play King's Court, merchant, merchant, merchant. All of a sudden, you've drawn like an 8-card hand. You've got functionally unlimited actions. Your silver is now worth like 8. And then you start butchering stuff from there. But that would require, you wouldn't want too many treasures. You'd want like a silver and a bunch of merchants. Then you'd want some butchers and some King's Courts. And that's, I think, what that deck would look like. I think that could be competitive with butcher money. Certainly a King's Court engine would be very strong if there were any other draw besides King's Court. Well, King's Court is an amazing card. It's only like okay draw. Like literally King's Court plus merchant is drawing as much as like a laboratory. costs twice more and twice as many buys. And yet Nomis does have a points lead. What's happened to Ali's deck? I still think like Ali's in a fine spot. It seems like their deck's overall stronger. They've got the butchers. They're just taking a little bit long to green. You know, like building big could be fine if you're building towards a bunch of king's courts, but their deck seems to be mostly moneyish. So there's no real drawback to greening early. We said, you know, butcher can deal with provinces pretty easily, so you're not unhappy to have provinces in your deck as much as normal. I would just play butcher, trash nothing, buy gold, or not buy gold, buy province. Good, that's what they're doing. Horse Traders is going to be, it definitely becomes an awkward card later in the game. Horse Traders is like kind of functionally gold when you've got a bunch of junk in your deck, because you're going to be discarding 2 bad cards anyway. But the better your deck gets, the more you don't want to be discarding 2 other cards in your hand to get that benefit. So Horse Traders is definitely a card I'd be looking to butcher at the earliest opportunity. So Nomis has another King's Court plus no actions hand. Again, that's not surprising because their deck has got a ton of treasures in it and not that many actions. If I wanted to build towards King's Court, I would be adding a very different set of cards. I'd be adding fewer treasures and more actions, so the King's Court had something to hit. Butchering the Lookout into gold. I don't know about that. This late in the game, I think the coppers have more value to you than the treasure does, right? You're going to see that gold once more in the game. You butcher it into a silver, you saved yourself 3 coffers. When it rolls around, maybe it scores you 1 less coin, but it saved you 3 less virtual coins, the coffers, that can be spent at any point. So I would think there you just butcher the silver, or you butcher the Lookout into like a silver, butcher the forge into the province, and then you probably just like leave the copper around and buy something with it. So Nomis has pointed out that they've had 2 unlucky draws of the King's Court. I mean, exactly how unlucky is it? How many actions do they have? They've got a Horse Traders, a Merchant, a Village, another Horse Traders, they're mostly buying lots and lots of treasures. Like, you've got basically, I think, 2 cards in the deck that I would want to King's Court, which is Village and Merchant. You don't really want to King's Court a Horse Traders that much because you have to discard 6 cards. You know, it's like the rest of the hand vanishes. You King's Court away all the cards if you King's Court a Horse Traders. I mean, you hit 9, so you buy like a province, but King's Courting Horse Traders does not seem like a very enticing proposition to me. So if you have 2 total cards in your deck that you want a King's Court and 2 King's Courts, the odds of lining those up does not seem amazing to me. And so I'm going to chalk this one up, there's like a little luck involved, but I don't think this is primarily like a bad luck thing. I think Nomis hasn't built the deck that wants King's Court in it. They've got a bunch of treasures. King's Court wants a bunch of actions. King's Court could be good here, but if that's what you're aiming, you're buying fewer silvers and fewer golds and more merchants and butchers and stuff. You're also trashing much sooner. Certainly turn 19 of the game, you should not have a States and Coppers still around. Not with this much trashing to be had. All right, I think it's 5-0 for Ali. Let me check. Yep, 5-0 so far, it looks like. Yes, I think key takeaway here. I think Ali, I wouldn't even added the King's Court, honestly. Like, you don't have enough actions that you're really likely to line it up. It's not terrible because you could line it up with Butchers, which isn't bad, but it's not amazing either. I think Nomis's mistakes were not trashing early. Remake is just way better than opening than Horse Traders. And then if you want to do the King's Court thing, you got to commit to that early, add a bunch of actions. If you don't want to commit to that, then I would just skip King's Court and add more like golds and provinces instead. let's look at this kingdom. So, draw, we've got Council Room, nets you 3 cards. Masquerade can draw you a card. Embassy can draw you a card. That's all the cards that net... Oh, Watchtower can draw you cards. By default, if you have a 5-card hand, Watchtower is net drawing you 1 card. There's no action, though, anywhere. That's the huge limitation here. So we see no plus action. And every draw card we pointed out was terminal draw. So you can't really build an engine because if you draw your deck with a terminal draw card, you spent your 1 action for the turn, your turn's already over. There is trashing with Trade Route, which is a weak trasher, Masquerade, which is a good trasher, and Expand, which is alright. I mean, it would be good if it didn't cost 7. And we got plus buy in the form of Council Room, Trade Route, Pawn. But the plus action here is too big a limitation. Usually, if you've got no plus action, to build an engine, what you would need is good non-terminal draw, like Laboratory, or Stables, or Hunting Party. Something that can draw you cards without costing you action. And then you could draw your deck and then play 1 terminal action at the end of it. We don't have that here, so it's definitely money-ish. Now there's a few good big money cards. You know, Council Room big money is pretty strong. Embassy big money is pretty strong. Even Masquerade big money is pretty strong. Those are all good terminal draw cards to add with just a bunch of treasures. And so if I'm looking at this kingdom, I'm saying the lack of action kind of hamstrings the engine thing. I want to play something money-ish. Now what's that look like? If you've got 3-4, 4-3 as they do, for me I think that's a pretty clear Masquerade Silver opening. You know, double Masquerade can often be good if you want to get real trashed. But if you're playing money, getting super trashed isn't the most important. I would get Masquerade Silver, probably look to add like an Embassy, and then mostly silvers and golds and start provincing pretty fast. I don't think this deck can do a whole lot more than that without plus action. Now how do they open? So neither of them touch the Masquerade pile. That's a shame. Masquerade's a real strong card. Let me check what it's rated. So Masquerade at the moment, just for reference, is ranked 11th out of 360 cards on the community polls, which is pretty darn far up there. Real good card. Why? Well, it costs 3 and it draws you a card and it trashes a card. So it's super cheap and does 2 things your deck really wants to do, basically no matter what type of deck you're building. So I would open Masquerade without the shadow of a doubt. Could be 2 Masquerades, maybe. I think Masquerade Silver is just more reliable because the silver still helps you if it lines up with Masquerade. Whereas if you drop both Masquerades, you'll be a little bit sad. I don't like Secret Passage much in this deck. Secret Passage is mostly for reliability, right? It helps you find the cards you want in the order you want them. That can be a nice card to add to engines because it makes your engine less likely to dud. You can play the Secret Passage to put some cards in the bottom of the deck, cards you don't want like Treasure, and then find your action card sooner. But if you're playing big money with terminal draw, like Embassy or Council Room, you're drawing 4 or 5 cards, but none of those cards can be played if they're actions, right? You spent your 1 action playing your Council Room or your Embassy, and then your action phase for the turn is done. And so if you have Secret Passages in your deck, thinking they're adding to reliability, they might end up hurting you because if you draw them with your Council Room or your Embassy, they're just getting in the way, right? You can't play them because your action's already spent. And so I don't really want Secret Passages in this deck because they don't jive well with terminal draw, big money. I think Embassy is probably marginally better than Council Room here for big money purposes. You see 1 more card and you don't draw your opponent a card. You do discard cards, but I mean, if you got like estates and stuff, that's not a huge deal. But Council Room's not bad either. So neither of them touched Masquerade, which I dislike a lot. I think Masquerade opening is pretty clear, but let's see what they've done since then. Nomis buys the Council Room. Don't dislike that. Ali buys gold. That's fine. They've already got an Embassy. If they've already got an Embassy in their deck, buying gold is fine. I wouldn't buy gold before terminal draw. I don't love the Expand very much. If you want to trash, you should have done that early with Masquerade. I think Expand is probably worse for this deck than just Embassy or Council Room, probably. Again, turn 9, Nomis buys up Pawn. I think on 10, you probably just buy Province. Could be gold, silver if you wanted to keep building. But Pawn has the same problem Secret Passage does, which is if you're playing big money with terminal draw, a big portion of the cards you're going to be seeing are going to be cards you're drawing dead with your embassy or your council room, right? You got a hand that's 4 treasures and a council room. You're going to be seeing as many cards after playing the council room as before. And so there's a very high likelihood you just never get to play that pawn and it just gets in your way. And so I don't want to add cantrips like Secret Passage or Pawn to my deck if I'm drawing a bunch of cards with these, because any cards I draw with these, if they're action cards, they're useless. I'd rather just not have the pawn on my deck, even if I am buying nothing else instead of it. That's not obviously. I think that's not always true, right? There's kingdoms where adding a cantrip to your deck is proactively good, like an engine with Scrying Pool. But this is definitely not one of them. Let's see what Pregnant Bird said. I would have tried to build a bit. Probably big money would have been better in an earlier game. There's also Embassy, and it was even the Obelisk card. Oh, that was the game where you had like a laboratory, catacombs, bandit camp, encampment. I want to say overall, that kingdom I think was a little bit better for building. You did have plus action, and there was definitely non-terminal draw. I think that deck turned out pretty fine. I mean, I'll upload my commentary on that one, so you'll see what I said rather than get into it here. The big difference here is there's no action anywhere, so you can't build because there's nothing your deck can do without plus action. That kingdom did have plus action. Your kingdom was much more viable for building an engine. How are they doing here? So it looks like Ali's in the lead again. Where has this gone awry for Nomis this time? The decks felt pretty similar. So Ali went with the Embassy, which we said was slightly better than the Council Room. Ali went with 2 silvers, which I think is slightly better than Secret Passage. They both got expands, which I don't love. Maybe this is Nomis got both expands. Yeah. So Nomis is getting a bunch of terminal action cards here, with no action to play them all. That doesn't seem amazing. I think what you really want here is mostly silvers and golds and like 2 to 3 draw cards, which in my mind is Masquerade first, then probably Embassy, although Council Room would be fine, and then maybe late in the game you add a second Embassy or Council Room. And then most of the other buys are gold, silver, or victory cards. And that's how I would play this. It's just very simple money. Nomis has got a bunch of expands, but like if you're playing that, you're not playing your draw cards. You're probably not hitting Province too much. I think the expands are probably a mistake. It should have been golds here. They have gotten uncharacteristically weak kingdoms. We've seen a bunch of relatively weak kingdoms here that make it kind of hard to build. Like even the King's Court game. King's Court normally is like Scream's engine. Even that one, I think Butcher Money was a plausible contender versus the King's Court engine. All right, I think that's all of them. I want to say we played our 6 games. I only caught the last 4, but I believe they played 2 before I got here.